fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to ROI facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to deliver the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today, we are diving deep into research that has generated some serious buzz across the industry. This material is going to challenge everything we thought we knew about fresh cow problems and the transition period.
The mission today is clear: unpack the 15.1 ROI protocol. We need to understand exactly why treating inflammation before calving is rapidly becoming, the new standard for reducing disease and boosting production. For decades, we've just accepted a 20 to 30% French cow disease rate as, the cost of doing business. It was just unavoidable, right? But the unified research coming out of Penn State, Iowa State, and Alberta says that acceptance is costing us a fortune.
We've always been trained to blame negative energy balance. The cow doesn't eat enough, she goes into deficit, and then the metabolic issues just pile up. But these sources are suggesting inflammation is the true root cause, and it's actively hijacking resources needed for production.
The stakes are enormous here. The sources really honed in on one staggering metric. When a dairy cow's immune system really kicks into gear, it burns through 2 to 3 kilograms of glucose daily.
Hold on. Let me just translate that to the bucket. You're telling me that inflammation is burning off enough glucose daily to produce 44 to 68 pounds of milk.
That's right.
That is nearly 70 pounds of potential milk just gone, stolen by the immune system every single day.
Yeah.
That completely flips the NEB argument on its head. It suggests the cow isn't just lacking energy, the whole system is misallocating it.
Exactly. And the core issue here is timing. The research confirms the inflammatory cascade begins 14 to 21 days before calving.
So way before.
The cow is essentially programmed for failure or success way before she ever enters the maternity pen. If we are waiting until she's fresh to treat ketosis or metritis, we're trying to treat the fire after the barn has already burned down.
So what's the definitive proof that it's inflammation driving this and not just, a symptom of her not eating enough? Because that's the traditional view.
That comes from some really elegant work out of Iowa State, published in the 2017 Journal of Dairy Science. They needed to prove that inflammation itself was the problem, regardless of energy. So they challenged cows with LPS, that's lipopolysaccharide. It basically mimics a systemic infection. And they even infused extra glucose to make sure the cow's blood sugar was perfectly normal.
So they took energy out of the equation.
Completely. And even with blood sugar maintained artificially high, with all the glucose available, milk production still crashed by 42% on day one.
42%.
It wasn't about the energy available, it was the immune system just outcompeting the mammary gland for resources because it was prioritizing survival over production.
Okay, that's compelling data. So the old story, Lauca feed intake causes metabolic problems. That's officially challenged. The research is suggesting the inflammatory state is causing the reduced intake and the dysfunction.
So let's use this new paradigm to challenge what everyone knows in the industry. If inflammation is the real driver, what does that mean for something as foundational as hypocalcemia or milk fever? Here is where the University of Alberta research gets genuinely fascinating and a little counterintuitive. They found that hypocalcemia might not just be a simple shortage of calcium. It could be the body's intelligent protective response to control that runaway inflammation.
An intelligent response.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds crazy. Why would a healthy body mechanism cause a disease we spend billions trying to fix?
Because pro-inflammatory signaling molecules, they're called cytokines, they actually upregulate calcium-sensing receptors. In plain English, the body is hitting the emergency brake on calcium, actively lowering its blood levels as a way to slow the spread of inflammation.
It's like the body is sacrificing milk production by dropping calcium. just to prevent a total systemic collapse from inflammation.
Exactly. And this explains why some fresh cows won't respond to standard calcium supplementation, no matter how aggressively you drench them. Their inflammatory state simply won't allow the calcium to normalize. That is a fundamental biological shift we have to account for.
So the solution isn't treating every cow the same. That's inefficient and, frankly, expensive.
Right. Adrian Berrigan's team at Penn State developed these risk-based protocols that they validated on commercial dairies. Let's translate this precision approach to the barn floor.
This is where my skepticism kicks in. Who gets what and when?
Yeah.
And we need to be really clear here. We are talking about NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These are serious drugs, not feed additives.
The data supports very targeted use. First calf heifers. These benefit greatly from meloxicam given 14 days prepartum. The result was an extra 11 pounds of milk daily for the first 150 days.
Okay.
Second, overconditioned cows. We define that as a body condition score, or BCS, of 3.75 or higher. Prepartum aspirin treatment cut disease rates almost in half, from like 38-46% down to 21%.
That's a huge drop.
And third, normal multiparous cows. Aspirin postpartum, and this timing is critical, 12 to 36 hours after calving. This group saw 3.6 pounds more milk daily.
Wait, let's stop on the heifers. Giving an NSAI 14 days prepartum. That's a huge time commitment, a huge cost in labor to identify and catch those cows in such a tight window. Is the 11 pounds of milk really worth the extra labor and the risk of maybe missing that window? This feels like industry hype over practicality.
That's a fair operational challenge, but the data is robust. If you multiply 11 pounds of milk by 150 days, even at, say, 16-cent milk, that's $264 per heifer. The cost of the drug and the labor is, it's negligible compared to that return. It becomes an operational priority because the investment pays off so fast.
Okay.
However, that timing warning is absolutely critical, and it has to be repeated. Never give NSAIDs before the placenta passes.
Right.
Penn State research found doing so increases stillbirths 5-fold. You have to wait for that placental expulsion to avoid devastating consequences, even for the normal cows we treat postpartum.
Okay, so now let's talk real farm economics. The 15.20.1 protocol.
The investment is surprisingly small, about $8 to $10 per cow treated, depending on the drug and, your purchasing power.
Okay, but what does that actually look like on a standard 500-cow dairy if you're just treating the high-risk animals? I need dollar figures that prove this is worth managing.
Right. So if we assume a 500-cow operation is treating only the overconditioned cows and all the heifers, that's about 325 animals a year. The total investment in these protocols is about $3,250.
Okay, $3,250.
The documented return, calculated from the milk gains in heifers and older cows, plus the huge disease reduction savings, is around $52,400.
$52,000.
That is where the 15-to-1 return comes from, based on a very conservative MIC price of 18 cents a pound.
That is staggering.
Yeah.
Even if you're operating in a severe down cycle and only getting, 14-cent milk? The sources confirm you're still seeing an 11-to-1 ROI. That kind of financial return makes this not a luxury, but a mandatory management strategy for any operation that's serious about profitability. It's too expensive not to do this.
I agree, but what about producers who are organic or just want to minimize pharmaceutical use? We know that 15-to-1 is the top-tier return, but can management changes alone capture most of the benefit?
And that's a great question.
They absolutely can. The research is clear. Implementing management changes alone captures about 60% of the total benefit. It's all about controlling the inflammatory triggers you can influence, which really it usually means reducing stress.
Heat stress is the biggest preventable trigger. We need to define THI, the temperature-humidity index. Cows experiencing a THI above 72 in the final 3 weeks of the dry period lose 5 to 16 pounds of milk daily for the entire lactation.
The entire lactation, not just the first month.
That loss is permanent, and that's a hard financial number to just ignore. That means dry cow cooling pays for itself so quickly, with a return of $60 to $160 per cow just in reduced inflammation. It's often viewed as a comfort investment, but it's really a production investment.
When you brought up stocking density, which is an immediate low capital fix.
Correct. Wisconsin research consistently shows that close-up pens need to be below 80% capacity to reduce stress, reduce cortisol, and cut disease. If you have 100 stalls, you should only have 80 cows. It is absolutely essential.
And you have to be disciplined about diet. Limit starch increases to less than 5 percentage points when you shift from the dry cow ration to that high-energy lactation ration. That aggressive switch creates leaky gut, allowing inflammatory factors into the bloodstream. It causes systemic inflammation before she even starts milking.
There's another surprising trigger that came out of the sources, and that's social dynamics. Mixing first lactation heifers with mature cows exposes those heifers to twice the inflammatory stress, just from competition and social hierarchy.
I remember reading about the Idaho producer who took this seriously. He invested $45 grand in new free stalls and facility changes just to separate those groups. And he saw his fresh cow disease rates drop from 35% down to 18%.
A huge investment, but a huge return.
But the sources also provide an immediate, practical answer for smaller operations. The Georgia dairyman, who proved simple portable gates and adjusting grouping protocols, can also cut competitive displacements by 60%.
Exactly. Sometimes the low-tech, high-management solutions work the best. You don't always need a $45,000 facility upgrade.
So if we're implementing this new inflammatory paradigm, we have to track it properly. What are the early signs of hidden inflammation before clinical disease actually hits?
We need to be looking for rumination below 500 minutes in the first week fresh. That's a major sign the cow is uncomfortable and redirecting her energy. Also, track your disease rates. If more than 15% of your fresh cows have any disease, event, ketosis, metritis, DA within 30 days, you have an inflammation problem.
And don't forget butterfat. A sudden drop below 3.2% for Holsteins or 3.8% for Jerseys is a measurable sign of inflammation hijacking fat and glucose utilization. These metrics give you an early warning system that is accessible in your management software right now.
The biggest challenge, though, as the source material noted, isn't the data, it's the cultural shift. Most vets and nutritionists were trained on the old metabolic theories of the 1990s. They need to see the proof.
Well, that's why I liked the success story of the Wisconsin producer. He ran a 90-day side-by-side trial with his vet, treated half the high-risk group with the new protocols, tracked the controls. They saw the disease drop from 31% to 18% in the treatment group.
Data beats assumptions every time. Producers need to prove it on their own farms to change the culture around them.
All right, you've finished milking and are heading to the feed store. You need practical, immediate steps to integrate this deep dive into your operation. Let's give you the 3 actionable takeaways you need to apply today.
Immediate action this week. Prioritize stocking density in your close-up pens. Use existing space or portable gates to get below 80% capacity by adjusting group movements. This is free milk, and if you're starting postpartum treatment, put a rigid zero-tolerance protocol in place. No NSAIs until the placenta has passed.
Medium-term strategy, next 3 to 6 months. Start a targeted treatment trial on your highest-risk groups, your heifers and your overconditioned cows, and track the results against untreated controls. Use your management software to monitor those rumination dips and butterfat changes as your early inflammation warning signs. You need that data to convince your team.
And long-term positioning, next 1 to 2 years, invest in dry cow cooling. The persistent, expensive production losses, 5 to 16 pounds of milk loss for the entire lactation make. Cooling a non-negotiable expense for preventing inflammation and maximizing profit. That investment returns 10 times over.
This has been another deep dive from the Bovine Podcast. If this kind of hard data analysis helps your operation, head to www.thebulvine.com for more articles that tell you what's really happening in dairy.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. We're releasing sessions twice weekly now, and trust me, you do not want to miss what we've got coming next week. A deep dive into microbiome analysis and how it's getting close to commercial reality, predicting ketosis before symptoms even appear. That's preemptive medicine.